Hi friends, this is Leela. Welcome to my channel Leela Web Dev. So we are learning about the another way of implementation of event listener, that is inline properties. So let's try to see a bit more detail about this one. So let's click on the slideshow. Okay. So now we will discuss about the inline property event listeners. This is very similar to the event listener adding to an element. So that means this inline property event listener is also very similar to the inline event listener only. Here we are setting the property of an element using JavaScript instead of the HTML attribute. In our inline event listener, so what we have did it, we have written the inline event listener as a HTML attribute. So that is nothing but on click is equal to, we are writing some function. So here also one and the same only, but instead of adding as an HTML attribute, we will write the all event listener in the JavaScript. So that is the main difference between these two. So example is, for example, if you want to see the button click me, already we have seen about this one. So but button click me, if you have our function. So here in our inline event listener, we'll be having on click is equal to like this. In our HTML only, the event listener will be there. Whereas here our function will remain same. The function which we will be calling on click will remain same, but we need to access the element from the JavaScript. So here we need to access the element from the JavaScript. It will be like something like let button is equal to like this. We need to catch the button, and btn on click is equal to hello. So we'll be writing like this. So this is how we'll be implementing. Just I am giving you an overview, but because in our previous video we have already seen about this one. Remember, under both of these approaches, we are eventually attaching an event listener as a property on our HTML element. There are two approaches if you try to see inline event listener and also the inline property event listener. So the both approaches, we are using the same thing. We are attaching an event listener as a property to an HTML element. So the current approach which we are trying to see is slightly better than directly writing our event listener in our HTML file directly. So the previously we used to write the event listener directly in the HTML file, but the current approach which we are trying to see, it is slightly somewhat better than the previous one. Why is it better? So why is it better is at least our HTML markup is clean and all our code is in the JavaScript file. So that is the thing I am telling you, it's slightly better. So better means can we use this one? So you may be having a doubt that. So you are saying that compared to the previous one, it is better. Can we use this type of methodology? But still it is not the best approach and suffers from some hurdles. That is nothing but setting multiple separate event properties is difficult. So if you want to write separate event properties for this one, so event is the same event listener separate you want to write, it means it is difficult, not difficult, it is not possible. Okay, so that is the thing I want to tell. Before I move on, I want to clarify the difference between HTML attribute versus a DOM property. So this is what we will try to see it. So first we will try to see the disadvantage of this one. So separate event properties is difficult, right? So I will try to show you. For example, let's move on to this one, Visual Studio Code. So here I am having a button. Let's assume that I am having a button. Okay, I am having a button. So I will take this button, and this one is inline property. So this one is inline property, and here I will try to have so inline property. I will try to take this one as ID. Okay. So now what I want to do, first I want to capture this one. So let's go to the app.js. So here I will do let inline property button is equal to document dot get element by ID of like this. So we got the inline property. Okay, let's console this inline property button so that we can have clear indication. So now if you try to see the output for this one, so let's see here, we are able to see and we are able to get this property. Okay, for in order to implement this one, what I need to do, sorry, inline property button dot on click is equal to, so here we can write on click is spelling is a mistake, on click is equal to, so here we can write anonymous function. So if you want, you can also call the function directly. So here I will try to use alert hello or something like this. Okay, so let's try to see this one, whether we can able to see it or not. So now if I try to click on this one, we are able to see alert hello. Somehow I got in such a situation that, or otherwise we can also use something like hello. Okay, so here what I will try to do, function hello, and here we'll try to use alert hello, something like this. Let's see whether this one works or not. If you try to see here, okay, we should give the reference for this one, we should not give like this. Okay, let's see. We refreshed. If I click on this one, we are able to get a hello. So now I got a feeling in such a way that I want to apply another method to the same on click. So inline property, for the previous one also we cannot do it. So dot on click is equal to hello2. I want to apply another method for this one. Which one will execute? So whether both will execute or which one will execute. So hello2, we have a function. So alert, I will try to do hello2. Now we are having two functions. So on click is binded to the both event handlers, hello event handler and also the hello2 event handler. So which one will execute? So whether both the functions will execute upon clicking on that button or only one will execute. Let's see. So here if you try to see, only the hello2 executing. So hello1 is gone. So if I click on OK, hello, the function hello is not executing. For example, if I try to mention this one at the top, I will try to mention this one at the top. Now which one will execute? So hello or hello2. So if you try to see here, so now this time only this hello2 is not executing, hello is executing. So that means the method which we are trying to implement afterwards is getting overridden by with the first one. So whenever you mention so many on click event listeners, the same event is like this, so it will be get overridden by this one. So that is the disadvantages you need to understand. So that is the thing. So previous one also has the same disadvantage, but the main thing, the advantage of this one is, so we are not writing the on click, these all the HTML, this JavaScript type of code in the HTML. So we are making it as clean, but the disadvantage is this one. So before closing up this one, I want to tell you about the difference between the HTML attribute versus the DOM property. So this is one of the important thing I want to tell you. Most of the people doesn't know about this, the difference between HTML attribute and the DOM property. It is useful to know the distinction, especially when you start getting more advanced in your development career. For example, Angular data binding is there, right? So we know about the Angular data binding. It's all about binding to the DOM object properties. So it will always bind to the DOM object properties, not to the HTML attributes. So just you'll try to see the difference between those two. So for example, let's say that I'm having a div element here. Not div element. So I'm having an input element. Okay, we know about this input element. Type is equal to text. I am trying to do value is equal to Leela. So this is the value. So we know this attribute value. So this HTML attribute value, we know this one. So value is an attribute and it is written in the HTML code. It is also used to set the initial value of this element to Leela. So this is the thing. So for example, let's say that. So let's go into this one and refresh this page. Now we are able to get this Leela, right? So now if you want to, so if you go to the console, so we can access this attribute value attribute by using the get attribute, right? So let's try to take it. So here document dot query selector of input element. So if you try to take, so we are able to get the input element dot get attribute of value. So we are trying to get the value of this attribute. So now we are able to get the Leela. So this is one way of getting this one. Okay. So the another way of getting this one is, so we have another way of implementation also. That is nothing but what I can say is using the DOM property called value. So that is also one way we can get it. Instead of using the get attribute, so we can use dot value. Then also you'll be able to get the Leela. Then what is the difference between those two? When I need to use, so when I need to use the get attribute or when I need to use this dot value. So here you need to understand the difference between those two. So for example, let's say that here we are having this one, right? Let's go to the app.js and here in this one, so let input element, let's try to capture the input element. Input element is equal to document dot get, query selector, query selector of, what is that one? It's an input element. We got the input element. And let's try to do console.log input element dot get attribute of value. So this is one thing. and we know that another one is dot value. So this is the DOM property method, and this one is the getting the attribute through the HTML. So now if you try to see, we are able to get the both the Leela. So it's correct, fine. So now what I will try to do is, so here I will be having a function, okay, get value. So this one is a function. So this function also does the same thing, that is nothing but, so it will capture the it will capture the input element and it will give you the value. Now if you try to see the output, so we are able to get this one. So when I call this method, so what is that one? Get value. Then also I'm able to get the same value. Now the difference between this attribute and the DOM object value is, for example, I have changed this value to Leela WebDev. Previously the initial value for this one is Leela only. So now I change it to Leela WebDev. So just try to get the values. So now see, if you try to see, the get attribute has sent only the, this get attribute has sent only the initial value, whereas the dot value is dynamic. So that is the difference between those two. So HTML attributes are defined by the HTML, whereas the properties are defined by the DOM. By writing attributes in your HTML, they set the initial values in the DOM. Attribute values cannot change. So this is the sense, this makes sense, right? Remember, attributes are written into your HTML, whereas the property values in the DOM and the DOM can be dynamic and change all the time. So that is the main thing. Okay. So this is the main thing which you need to remember. Frameworks like Angular and all those things work with the DOM properties and events, not attributes. So these are not the things that Angular will work. So DOM properties can be dynamically updated where the attributes don't change. HTML attributes set the initial value of the DOM properties. Once the initialization is completed, the attribute's job is done. So that is the main thing between the get attribute and the value. Hope you understood about these get attributes and the DOM property value. If you have any doubts or any suggestions, please post the comments below to this video. And if you like this video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you.